Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Izobo, and I am an international human rights lawyer and gender advocate. And I'll be your host today on the theme, Together We Are Stronger, Generation Equality. Our special guest speakers are Chief Dele Momodu, Shiro's Global Voice to Men Project Ambassador, as well as the founder and chairman of the Ovation Media Group. We also have Councillor Yemi Adenuga, first Black woman elected to a county council in the Republic of Ireland and president of Shiro's Global. Please use the chat box for your questions and your comments. In 1948, nations came together to adopt what is arguably the most important document in history, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document recognizes the inherent dignity as well as the equal rights of all persons. Sadly, over 7 decades later, to be exact, 72 years later, women and girls continue to be stigmatized, victimized, marginalized, silenced, shamed, and their rights violated. Women are compelled to constantly fight every day for the protection and promotion of their rights, whether it is access to education, equal participation in political and leadership roles, unequal pay, household burden. Women continue to struggle through it all. Women envision a world where everyone has equal rights and opportunities, a world without patriarchy, oppressive or toxic masculinities, a world where women and girls can voice their opinions in their environment and be heard in decisions that actually affect their life. A world where women and girls are not scared to walk home alone at night. In this world, gender equality is the standard. In 1995, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the Beijing Platform for Action, was adopted to achieve equal participation for women and girls in all spheres of life. The Beijing Platform for Action highlights the empowerment of women and girls globally by setting out several ways to eliminate the systemic barriers that prevent women and girls from equal participation. This year, 2020, makes it 25 years since the adoption of the Beijing Platform for Action. Instead of the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Platform for Action, the United Nations Women started a campaign on generation equality, realizing women's rights for an equal future. The Generation Equality campaigns calls for an end to all forms of violence against women and girls, equal participation in political life and decision-making in all areas of life, equal pay, equal sharing of unpaid care work, and domestic work. There's the need to engage boys and men and the knowledge that gender equality is crucial for everyone, as well as recognizing the role of men and boys in the Generation Equality campaign for future generation of women and girls. This is because women cannot do it alone. Together, we are stronger. Our first special guest speaker, Chief Dele Momodu, he is a Shiro's Global Voice to Men Project Ambassador, a businessman, a philanthropist, politician, and motivational speaker. Chief Momodu is an accomplished man of letters, a media tycoon who redefined journalism in Africa and gifted the world Ovation magazine. He is also a bold, circumstantial politician who braved all odds to contest as a presidential candidate in Nigeria in 2011. Chief Momodu has received innumerable awards and honors and has garnered recognition for his work in the world of business, philanthropy, politics, literature, the music industry, as well as the fashion industry, in which he plays major roles. He was given the Vigor Unsung Heroes Award in 2015, and Shiro's Global Initiative honored him with the Global Ambassadorship Award in 2018. Our second special guest speaker, Councillor Yemi Adenuga. She's often referred to as Energy in Motion. She's the first Black woman to be elected as a public representative in the Republic of Ireland and the first migrant ever to be a councillor in Meath County Council. She is the founder and president of Shiro's Global, a not-for-profit that inspires, empowers, and impacts women and young people. She is the founder and curator of the Godmothers Network, a global network of female leaders who mentor young women to build confidence, become, and occupy space. She's also the founder of the Boys to Men Project, which we'll actually be talking about today a lot, a Shiro's Global initiative aimed at raising a generation of good men. She is a best-selling author of 2 books, The Power of Thank You and A Guide to Making Career Options. She has received and been nominated for several awards, one of which is being listed as one of Ireland's most influential women by Irish Tatler magazine. She has been called a game changer in Irish politics by the Irish Independent newspaper. She has a vision to empower women and young girls. She has constantly demonstrated by her own examples, determination and hard work that any goal can be achieved. Talk about Black girl magic. Ladies and gentlemen, please our first special guest speaker, Chief Dele Momodu.
Hello, good evening from Lagos, Nigeria. Our chief host, Mary Zobo, thank you so much for inviting me and my very dear sister, whom you have described in superlatives, because she is such a great lady, and we're very, very proud of her, Councillor Yemi Adenuga. So I'm happy to be on your platform this evening. And what can I say? It feels good, you know, when you see a man championing women causes. But mine was not an accident. I was born to a family of Mr. and Mrs. Momodu in Ile-Ife in 1960. And I grew up in Ife, had my primary education. But suddenly, at the age of 13, my father died. I was barely 13 when my father died, and I was left with my poor, and I would say unlettered mom. You can imagine what life will be when the breadwinner of the family suddenly dies. And so that was the situation in which I found myself. I was the only product of my mom for my dad. Things got so hard. We couldn't afford to pay rent. My mom was a petty trader selling rice and things, you know, just generally engaged in petty trading. We had to move out of where we were staying in Ife to go and squat with some family members in Modakeke. So our lives changed so drastically and dramatically. And that was when I saw the strength in a woman. We tend to look at women as being of a weaker sex, but my mom showed and demonstrated clearly that a woman is very, very strong. Of course, I was in Form 2 going to Form 3 when this happened, so which meant that these 3 more years to go and to finish my what we call the West African School Certificate examination. My mom did everything humanly possible just to make sure that I could attend school and finish in good time. Of course, I had my first WAEC exam in 1976, but I didn't do well. I had what they call a poor grade 3. You would expect that my mom, being unlettered herself, would give up and then ask me to just go and do whatever I could do. She insisted I must go back to school. And that, I mean, was the beginning of learning how to be resilient. You know, this woman knew that education had made her like an underdog in a society, but she didn't want me to be one. And then, so I went back to school, and again in 1977, there was what they call a general examination leakage in Nigeria. And unfortunately, my results were withheld. So you can imagine the frustration of this poor woman who had been struggling. Once again, you will not believe it, she sent me back and said I should go back to school again for a 3rd time, by which time the earlier results were released and I was really able to gain admission into the University of Ile-Ife. Now, the interesting thing is that going to Ile-Ife I saw the determination of my mother. I couldn't survive like a normal student. I was staying in the bus quarters, at the staff quarters. My mom had to devise a means to make sure I could at least keep body and soul together while I was studying, even if we didn't have money. At the time, most of my mates had a pocket allowance of about 100 naira. At that time, money was still, the naira value was still very strong. My mom could only afford about 5 naira. But she would bring me uncooked food, and this turned me into a very good chef. So I had to cook. And you will not believe that the silver spoon friends I made on campus all used to assemble at my home every evening for dinner because I cooked the best, food on campus. And you see, this endeared me more and more to my mom because she made sure that I did not feel like an underprivileged kid. And so in the university, of course, I was doing my best. I studied Yoruba for my first degree. And then one day my mom heard I was studying Yoruba and she was shocked that how could any grown-up man go to university to go and study the language he speaks? Okay? And I had to explain to her that our language is just like any other language and we should do everything to make sure that it didn't go extinct. Of course, reluctantly, she agreed with me, but I could see that she was disappointed. But again, what happened was that I was being original. More people, 200, 300 people will graduate from English language department, while a few people will graduate from the Yoruba department. So by the time I came out, did my national service, to get a job became a problem. Then my mom told me, you see, I told you that you can't go and study a useless subject and expect to find a job. But this kept pushing me to do the best, not to disappoint her. And to cut a long story short, I went back for a master's degree in literature in English. And that now gave me, of course, a better opportunity, but still I couldn't get a job. But I didn't know that my destiny was leading me somewhere, because without that background in Yoruba and literature in English, it would have been impossible for me to become a journalist and become a writer of notes, in Africa. So my mom did everything to encourage me. And I almost became like a woman myself. I started thinking that yes, everything must be done to protect this woman. And the good news is that my master's project, my dissertation, was written about the oppression of women in Africa, using the books of Nawal El-Saadawi in Egypt, Nuruddin Farah in Somalia, and Mariam Abba in Senegal. And so this was how I developed, a relationship with women. I started reading a lot about women organizations, the oppression of women in Africa and beyond. And I realized that Africa has been most aggressive against women. When a woman stands up and says, I want to be a politician, there will be barriers. Then what now made it more difficult for me was looking globally, that even in the United States of America, it was difficult for a woman to make certain progress. If you look at the example, I supported Hillary Clinton, even against Obama, you will not believe it, because I've always believed that women were better managers than men. Women have fewer distractions to men. Women, it is impossible for a woman to marry 2 husbands, whereas it is possible for a man to marry 4 wives in certain cultures and still have some concubines, and nobody is going to raise an eyebrow. So a few years ago, Councillor Yemi Adenuga approached me and then told me about the Shiro's Global's Boys to Men project, and told me she wanted to be an ambassador. And I'm eternally grateful to her, because that gave me also an opportunity to practice what I learned in school about women. And as such, I've been in a position to champion women causes, to promote ideas that will elevate them in Africa, because women are often relegated. No matter how qualified you are, you will not believe that in a lot of our societies today, women are still discriminated against. In the whole of Nigeria, you will hardly find women, at the top. Though now in private sector, they are coming up, and we're encouraging them to come up. But in politics, it's still a big deal, except in countries like Liberia, where we had the first elected female president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And then now we have the first vice president, also in Liberia, Mrs. Joel Howard Taylor. Of course, in Malawi, we had Dr. Joyce Banda. So which means that Africa is even ahead of some as the European and American countries. Of course, we've had Margaret Thatcher in London. We've had the Chancellor in Germany. So the interesting thing is that we still have a long way to go. I think men like me, I even do more than a lot of women. One of the things I discovered is that women are their own worst enemies. The moment, you have a woman trying to do something, it's the same women who should understand our situation as a mother, as a provider in many societies. The men just sit down at home, they are drinking their palm wine, eating their, their pounded yam, while the women have to go to the farm. Sometimes they have to carry their baby behind them. They are carrying firewood on their heads, and yet we don't acknowledge their importance in our society. But I believe we are beginning to promote women issues, and with time, it can only get better. So thank you so much. So this is my introductory part, and I'll be willing to take questions from you.
Thank you so much, Chief Mamadou, for sharing your experience with us. That takes us to our second special guest speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please, Councillor Yemi Adenuga.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are from different parts of the world, whatever time it is at your end, good day. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here today. And I want to start by saying a massive thank you to Mary. Well done, Mary, for the great work that you're doing, putting Africa out there, one step at a time. We will achieve the goal that we're setting out to achieve, making a difference in our world. It takes one. I always believe it takes one person to start a shift. When you look at revolutions across the globe, it only took one person each time to start something off, an idea that became a reality, the gathering of people who bought into the same vision, wanting to shift the mindset, to bring about a global change. It took one. And so what you're doing today, yes, it is an online program. Several people are watching from different parts of the globe. But I'm also saying that to everyone who is watching, that who's to say that you're not that one person who is going to bring about a change? We won't all necessarily change the world, but we can change our environment. We can change the things around us. We can change the mindset of people around us, and it only takes one. And so thank you so much, Mary, for the great work you're doing. I'm so honored to be here with Chief Dele Momodu. He's somebody I hold in high esteem, somebody I love to work with all the time. I am super proud of him. He is a worthy ambassador of the Shiro's Boys to Men project. He is a media guru, highly respected in Nigeria, and I dare say in Africa as well. So it's an honor to be here with you as well, sir. And I want to thank everybody who's given their time to be here today. So really and truly today, I feel strongly, I mean, when you asked me to come and speak, my first thought was, we talk about gender equality all the time. more so now in a changing world where we feel the need to empower girls the more. Because on a daily basis, we see the need to make our girls feel confident, assertive, to take space and own their own. However, I've always questioned why sometimes we focus too much on equality and maybe not talk about equity as well. Perhaps even when we talk about equality now, we should be bringing in equity, because sometimes when we talk about equality, I mean, you look at my fingers now, I have really funny fingers. They're not equal, really and truly, right? And so sometimes when you look at the theory of equality, you're trying to pull this to be equal with this, right? You're trying to pull this one to be equal with this one. Perhaps that's not really possible. But when you talk equity, it means then that regardless of where any of these fingers are, they get what is due them. They get what it's deserving of them. And that's the one thing that I think we need to now constantly bring to the table. It's equality and equity. They both play a big role, and we must not leave one out for the other. Mm. So why, look, gender equality is a human rights issue. And that's the reality of our world today. When you look at the globe, girls and women have suffered incredibly. And when we talk about these issues, we ask the question, who have made them suffer? 12 million girls. Let's look at simple statistics, right? 12 million girls are married before the age of 18 every single year across the globe. Before they hit 18, 12 million girls. Now, who are the fathers of these girls? Why will they, when you think about it really and truly, these girls, most of them have fathers. Some don't, some do. And for those who have fathers, where are the fathers who should be fighting for their girls? You find that in most cases, the fathers are the ones who have sold these girls off to be married earlier, and the mothers have no say, because that's the way they also came into the man's life. There's nearly one girl every 2 seconds that loses her childhood. 1 in 5 women is married before her 18th birthday. Each year, over 4 million girls are at risk of undergoing female genital mutilation. These are still cultural issues that we struggle with yearly in different countries of the world. A couple of years ago, I did a documentary. I was still working in radio at the time. I was still back in Nigeria, and I ran a documentary. I used to do a lot of documentaries, and I loved documentaries because it enabled me research. And I ran one called If Only I Was a Boy. That was the title of that documentary. And it showcased the life, the character was a young girl who was at the time just 13. And we'd done a trip around Nigeria from the east to the north to the southwest and all around the country. And we'd explored the life of young girls who were going through really difficult situations. Girls in prostitution, girls who were married out early, girls who were suffering female genital mutilation, girls who were suffering VVF, girls who had no choice but to sell themselves. They weren't sold, they weren't pimped, they were selling themselves. And I remember so well, this very young girl that we'd met in Benin. We'd just left Port Harcourt and we're heading back to Lagos, and we'd done a road trip, and we met this girl in Benin. This young girl, at the time we met her, was, I think she was 17, and she'd just gone into university. Very beautiful young girl. And she told her story of how her father, who was a military man, had sent them from the north to live with their grandmother who was in Benin at the time. And the father stopped sending their fees because the father had remarried. And the grandmother had to cater for them. And this girl had to start selling herself at the tender age of 14 to pay for herself and her brother to go to school. And she said she had made a vow that come rain, come shine, she will finish school. And my heart just bled. And this girl had a father. Her mother died, but she had a father who should have been fighting her corner. She became a woman long before her time. Around the world, 132 million girls are out of school. These girls have no access to education. they are the lowest in the world, especially secondary school level. Disproportionately, girls are affected by HIV. About 62% of adolescents between the ages of 15 and 19 are living with HIV. These are girls across the globe. And today, when you look at it, we have about 126 million baby girls believed to be missing as a result of gender-based sexual violence, sexual selection. I mean, these are things that you think of and they break your heart. And so when we talk about gender inequality, what that straight up what it says to me is we call our men to be accountable, to begin to step up and feel that they not just think it, but feel it, that they are a part of the solution. We cannot just speak it, we have to do it. I always tell people, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. You're perhaps a big part of the problem. Every child has a right to be treated equally. So when we start treating our children right from when they're little, then we develop that orientation of treating adults right equally. Women and girls continue to face political, economic, and social inequality all across the globe. 2 years ago, I stepped into politics and I know what I experienced. And I'm sure Chief Momodu would tell you unending stories about how women in Africa suffer in politics just to get up the ladder. Why does it have to be so difficult? He said something earlier on and I completely agree with it. Women do things completely differently. We bring a diversity to the table. We are nurturers, you know, we carry, we nurture, we incubate, and then we deliver. That's the way we handle every single thing that we do. We as humans, we envisage, and you mentioned this earlier on, Mary, we envisage an equal society, one where everyone has equal rights, equal opportunity. But you see, patriarchy still ties us down. Culture still ties us down. Tradition still binds us in different ways. And we need to begin to explore the possible solutions that can set us free from all of these things that have bound us all these years. The cultures that have not given us results that will make us feel better, why are we still binding ourselves to them? Cultures evolve. And when you really think about it, Chief Momodu, really, he's a Yoruba guru. Not just that he studied Yoruba, but he had a passion for Yoruba. And when you take the Yoruba culture, the culture has evolved. What I hear today and what I see of the culture is different from when I was a kid growing up. You know, so many things have come into the culture, and yet we choose to hold on to the ones that keep us bound. The ones those portions of our culture that keep women subdued. They have to submit, they have to be subdued, they have to be down there. So this is why generation equality for me is so important. This is why I think everyone needs to position themselves to be part of this campaign. In today's world, both men and women, girls and boys all across the world are speaking up for themselves and for those who have been silenced. We need to open our voices and begin to speak. They're seizing the moment to reimagine economies, societies, political system, so that they can uphold human rights and achieve gender equality. And the idea is not to leave anyone behind. So for everyone who is here today, you have to recognize that you have a role to play.
We all do.
You have to recognize it. We all have a role to play. We need what I call more godmothers. And I'll tell you what this is. This is an initiative that I started a couple of years ago. I mean, I have heard people say repeatedly that women are their own worst enemies. This is perhaps because of the way that women, we don't power like men power. Let me explain that. And I'll use a very simple example that a number of people who are Nigerians here may perhaps understand. When you think of Lagos, the ultimate godfather in politics, if you think of Lagos, you think of a person like Tinubu, right? They call him the ultimate godfather. Why? Because think of all the governors that have come through in Lagos. They are all people who came through him. It felt like he literally handheld them and said, boys, I'm going to groom you and you're going to take over. You're going to become the governors in this state. That's been the story. How many women do you find holding the hands of girls and saying, when I step down as president of this oil company, when I step down as chief executive of this conglomerate, you're going to take over? We don't have so many. So we as women also have a role to play. We need to step in as godmothers. And I'll tell you the difference between godmothers, godmotherism, and mentorship. Most times for a mentor, you find that a girl would step forward, or a boy, and say, I want you to be my mentor. I'm sure you've heard loads of that before. I want you to be my mentor. But with godmothers, you don't wait for the person to come to you. And I'm speaking to every single woman who's here today. You find a girl in your community, around you, there's so many of them, who has potentials, who you see is growing and can deliver. And you begin to pour of yourself into that person to help them become leaders. Those who you know have the potentials to be leaders, and you begin to groom them. And you help them build their confidence and become assertive and to be sure of what area of leadership they want to step into. It's not about money, it's about you grooming that person for leadership, such that when they have that confidence enough, they know where they want to sit, and they find that person who's going to help them sit there. It's what in some American companies they would call a sponsor, a person who will be speaking on your behalf in a room when you're not there. We need more women to be doing that. Men need to value what women bring to the table. Men need to see the value that women carry. If men are going to acknowledge that we need equality, gender equality, they need to see the value that women bring to the table. I mean, when you think about it, let's look at what we're saying about women being better leaders. And I agree that women are better leaders. This COVID situation, female-led governments, most countries, right? Female-led governments, they shared similar approaches to the crisis, characterized by early consultation with national health experts and advisors, containing measures, and they implemented all this very, very early. On the other hand, most male-led governments, they downplayed initial warnings and acted with substantial delays to respond to the crisis. For example, the 14th of March, with only 102 confirmed cases of COVID-19, the New Zealand government, led by Jacinta, had announced stringent lockdown and quarantine measures at a time in the UK when the government, Boris Johnson, allowed, on the 10th of March, right, 700 confirmed cases in the UK. And gathering many more thousands of people, largely all across the country, right? The UEFA Champions League soccer features, all of that was going on. And there was a pandemic in the country. So African women, let's come to our nation, our continent of Africa. African women have been at the center of historic movement for years, for centuries, times immemorial. From empowering enslaved communities to nation building on the continent, women in Africa as well as diaspora have effectively challenged dominant power structures. And we keep doing it all across the globe. Some of the leaders that Chief Momodu had mentioned earlier on, they had to struggle through to get the positions they're in today. So I think one of the things we need to do in order to ensure gender equality, we must shift the way we understand agents and political actors in order to appreciate women's contributions. Women bring a lot to the table, but we must recognize it. We must recognize who these women are, what they do, more importantly, how they're using their lives as lenses to change ways all across the globe. When I was growing up, I'm going to finish up with this. When I was growing up, when I was a little girl, I come from a background of polygamy. My father had 7 wives and 27 children. And my mother had 6 girls of her own, 6 biological daughters of her own. all girls. And the wife before her, when she left my father, she left behind 4 girls. So my mother raised 10 girls. My father's family, a good number of them, did not believe that any one of us 10 girls were ever going to amount to anything. My father was the head of the clan, and he used to host the family meetings. And I remember on one of the occasions at the meetings, one of my uncles and aunties had come up the stairs to my mom, who had just looked after them after the family meeting. And they had said to my mother, well, you keep having girls. These girls of yours are going to amount to nothing. They're going to end up on the streets of Lagos as prostitutes. Imagine my father's family saying that to my mother. I heard it. My sisters heard it. My mother cried her heart out, and I told her I had to go to her that night and tell her, you need to stop crying. Why are you still crying? She said, didn't you hear what your uncle and auntie said? And I said, I did. And I made her a promise that day. I was only 13. I made her a promise. I said, my sisters and I are going to work so hard that my uncle's sons will wish they were your daughters. My sisters and I are going to work so hard and make you so proud that those boys who they think are the kings will wish that they were girls. And today the rest is history. So who says that girls cannot rule the world? Who says that girls cannot shift an entire system and make it better? We need to begin to change our mindset. Fathers who are here today, you need to recognize that your daughters bring something to the table. When you're old and gray, they're the ones who will remember you. That's the reality of life. If you're blessed, if you have sons, if you're blessed to have daughters-in-law that are fantastic, they would remember you quicker than your sons will probably remember you. So this is our reality. I want to keep it simple, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a further conversation. But the point today is, for me, we all play a major role in ensuring gender equality. We cannot hang that on one person or one part of the world or one part of the society. You play a big role, I play a big role, and it's up to us to see the change, to be that change we want to see. God help us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. Now I'm going to ask some questions. Some of the participants have asked questions, but I would just ask the question as I go along. My first question is for you, Councillor Adenuga. As the first Black female to be elected as a public representative in the Republic of Ireland and the first migrant to be a councillor in the Meath County Council, what do you think, to you, generation equality mean? And do you think that generation equality actually played a role in this? Looking at your presentation where you had said, I mean, these are barriers that we face every day as a woman. It's a continuous battle, constant struggle to either lead a nation or to even just be out there late at night. So how did the Generation Equality campaign, and also what do you think the generation equality is and played a role in all of this?
Well, I mean, when you think about it generally, the Generation Equality campaign, it demands equal pay. It demands equal sharing of unpaid care, domestic work, and end to sexual harassment and all forms of violence against women and girls. And it also looks at healthcare services that respond to their needs, you know, the needs of women all across the globe. So, yes, it did play a big role. For me, it played a big role. And I'll tell you how, for my party that I represent here in Ireland, it played a big role. So politics wouldn't have been something that I would have considered in times past. The ruling party at the time, it's called Fine Gael, when the party approached me to run, our prime minister, we call our prime minister the Taoiseach. So our prime minister at the time was the leader of my party. And it sent a message with leaders of the party to approach me to run to represent the party in my local municipal district. My first answer was, no, politics, nah. Because I've always seen politicians as a different breed of people. But you see, after many considerations and thoughts and deliberations with my husband and my family and other leaders, you know, they kept reminding me of something I've always said, that if you want to be part of the solution, you can't sit on the fence. You have to step across the fence and become part of the solution.
True.
And, you know, for me, I thought about this and had to answer the question of why I would really step ahead and do this. It had to be something completely different from the fact that the party had asked me to do it. And for me, it was a bigger platform to do more of what I was already doing in the community, making a difference in my community. So why am I sharing this story? The party approached me because the party wanted to fill a gender quota that the party had set for itself, to ensure that there were more women at the table, at the decision-making table where politics was concerned. And as God will have it, I ticked several boxes. I wasn't just a woman, I was a migrant, right? Brought something different, something fresh. And, you know, I always say it even till today, that difference is not a disadvantage. Difference is an advantage. I walk into a room today, if I'm the only Black person, I say to myself, here you go, they can't miss me. You cannot tell me that you did not see the only Black person in that room. It's impossible. And so for me, my difference is my advantage, and I take advantage of it and I bring it into a room to make a difference. Now, some people might say, yes, you need to fight for your quality to own a room. When you take that seat and you get that space, you have it already, use it. And that's why I always bring in equity, that people won't necessarily hand me equality. It may never, ever be equal. But you see, what I'm due, you can't stop me from getting it. Right? You can't stop me because I know how to get it. And I think that the Generation Equality campaign also, in a way, from all of the things that it talks about in terms of unpaid care, equal pay for women and all that, it's in a way addressing the issue of equity for all, for women especially. So I think it was a major part of it, even though at the time it wasn't something that I was thinking of or that the party was talking about, or that even as a politician stepping in at the time wasn't something we're thinking about. But the reality is it was. And so generation equality will now become our reality. It will enable us to always process everything we do, everything we think, every way we act, ensuring that we are not one of the culprits. You know, it's one thing to speak something, is another thing to act it. And so we cannot say one thing with one side of our mouth and they act differently on the other side when we turn our backs. Every single person has a role to play. For me, yes, it came in, and I think now the society needs to step up. The society needs to ensure that there's equal opportunity for every single person in political life and decision-making, wherever we find ourselves as humans. Everyone has to treat the other equal, because everybody carries a value, whether you like it or not. I can't remember that exact proverb in Yoruba, but it talks about a bad child has his own good day. You know, even a madman that you meet on the street, one day that madman might be the one who perhaps just jumps in front of your car and stops you from having an accident that is just waiting ahead of you. And you get upset that this madman is stopping you from going quicker than you want, but he's just saved your life without you recognizing it. Everyone brings a value.
Sure. Thank you so much, Councillor Denuga, for that answer. It takes me to Chief Momodu. Generation equality is important as it portrays the power of female unity and solidarity by women coming together to take actual steps, thereby reinforcing the ideals of gender equality. However, men play a crucial role as a change in their behavior can break barriers and stereotypes towards achieving the goal of gender equality. As a man and as a father, what does generation equality mean to you? Looking at your experiences, especially but having a supportive mother. And as JD asked the question here is, which I'm going to add to that because it encompasses all, to say that you were lucky to have a mom that was able to stand by you. Why and how can Okay, so he says to me, what would be your advice to men who did not have similar experiences as you did with your mother? Why and how can they still be gender perspective? So in all of this, what is your take?
Well, what I always say is that education is everything to me. If you are not properly educated, of course, you will live perpetually in the old stereotypes. But with my background, especially as a male feminist, I used to describe myself as a male feminist because I wrote my master's thesis on the oppression of women in Africa. So I was able to study firsthand the challenges facing our women. If you go to a country like Senegal, and I read So Long a Letter by Mariam Abba, you will see that even from birth, they are not talking about just circumcision of women, which we all frown at. They are practicing what is called infibulation. Infibulation is the extreme form, the most painful form of circumcision, where the entire genital is completely removed. It's not just mutilated, but completely removed. So you begin to have an inferiority complex even right from the time you are a child. In some societies in Nigeria, a man will choose to take a second wife just because the first wife did not bear a male child, and everything is blamed on the women. Not just that, issues of infertility, it is always assumed and presumed that only a woman can be infertile. So in a situation where you've been married for years and you don't have kids, the woman is looked at like you are a witch, that you must be a witch for you not to be able to. Whereas all you needed to do was to go to a doctor, a fertility doctor, who will check the woman and also check the man and try to measure his sperm counts. But in Africa, you will see that your in-laws will come, everybody will come, and they will shout, they will tell the man, what are you waiting for? Are you not going to have a child in your life? And then the woman becomes very miserable. I've seen extreme cases, like my former boss wrote in a column, Marilyn Ezekiel, who was married to Richard Mufedamijo, the actor. She wrote about what she went through just trying to find a baby. So these are some of the issues that we have. And it makes life very difficult for the woman. Again, as I said earlier on, the man sits down, he sees himself as the breadwinner, whereas in traditional African societies, you will realize that women did more. But these days, the man will say, yes, I have money, so my wife doesn't have to work. And that's how you are turned into a slave. So what happens is that our men should allow their wives to work. Whatever my wife wants to do today, she's a chartered accountant, she sells jewelry, she sells fabrics. She tells me I'm going to Switzerland. I'm never going to discourage her. She tells me I'm going to Austria or Italy, and I'm not going to discourage her. So I don't mind if my wife is more successful than me. A lot of men don't like it when women are successful. They believe that, oh, they will become uncontrollable. What do you want to control? You know? And I realize that men, we tend to spend impulsively. Whereas my wife asked her for 10 pounds to buy burger, she will tell you I don't have, because she's keeping it. You understand? So to the person who asked that question, my advice is that men should become more liberal. And when you are more liberal and then you are liberated, it helps you to raise a good family, to raise your children properly, and let them know that there is no difference between the male and the female child.
Thank you so much, Chief Mamadi, for that. Takes me to our next question for Councillor Denuga. Several countries have actually made attempts in achieving gender equality. Unfortunately, when you look at it globally, no country has achieved gender parity because of social, cultural, religious, political, and legal barriers, which you already mentioned, that continue to actually prevent this. The World Economic Forum says that none of us, nor our children, may see gender equality in our lifetime, as it will take 99 years for gender parity to happen. As a result, you have fewer women in politics and leadership positions. You have more women who actually continue to experience gender-based violence. You have less educated women. You have women who work so hard and earn less, like Chief Momodu said in his answers just a few minutes ago, and they are largely undervalued. So how has gender discriminatory norms, religion, tradition, and culture influenced the achievement of the Generation Equality Campaign?
Well, I think I'd mentioned part of this when I spoke earlier on about how culture and tradition have tied us down and how they've kept us in the Stone Age. And unless we begin to unlearn and relearn, we will stay in the Stone Age. I think part of what Chief Momodu said earlier on speaks to this question about, and the question that was asked of him about how men can, you know, play a role and how they can raise their families and all of that. I think one thing that I would love to say to men who are here today, in order for them to feel a sense of strength, I would say get some confidence. Get plenty of confidence. Yes, I will say that without fear or favor. And let me tell you why I'll say that. I have found out in my very short life on earth, working with tons of people, that the one thing that makes people become bitter, become angry, become very, very volatile is when they lack confidence and they see the other person as the enemy, and then they want to find every way possible to subdue that person. Chief Momodu had mentioned that he has no worries about his wife having more money than himself. And I can vouch for that because I know the family so well. But why is he able to say that? Because he has confidence in himself. He has confidence in what he himself has achieved as a man. And he has confidence in who he is as a human being. Money doesn't define us.
Yeah.
Money does not define, or money, I would rephrase that. We should not let money and material things define us. Our confidence comes from in here, from right in here. The value, I always say that the value of a person is not tied to the number of houses they've built, because all those houses can catch fire in one day. It's not tied to the number of cars they have. They can all get into an accident. But it's tied to the number of lives that you influence and impact in your lifetime. How many people have you made a difference in their lives? And this has to do with equality. How many people have you given the chance when you had the opportunity to? Or are you one of those who would rather subdue people around you just so that you can feel like a king? I always say that a person who is all powerful is a person who hands power to others. I'll explain that to you. I have so many mentors across the globe. Young girls, very elderly women who come to me, people I'm even older than, who come to me and say, I would love you to be my mentor. And when I work with these women and I groom them, and some of them, yes, I'm their coach and all of that bit. But you see, the value of me is not in the work I do with them, is in when I see them become. When I see them become. When these women become, I have learned so much from them as well. And that's what fuels my power. When they become, when they start to tell their story, I see them standing on stages and sharing. And somewhere between that story, they say, and I want to thank Yemi Adenuga for this and this and this. Now that's my power.
True.
If I wasn't a part of that story, they will never share me in that story. These are women who have become superpowers in their own rights, and yet somehow my name still manages to creep up. And the point I'm making therefore is, when your wife becomes a superpower, she is the wife of you. She is your wife. If you're a man listening, right, you are also, you have a role to ensure equality. This Generation Equality campaign, you have a big role in it. Empower your wife through your support for her. Let her, look, in Proverbs, right? I'm a Christian, and the proverb talks about this woman whose husband is a subject of conversations at the gate. Do you know why? Because his wife talks about him in such fantastic light that they converse about him at the gate, and his wife is always the point of reference. So there are women out there who are so powerful, who are doing amazing things. And if you're a husband to one of those women, please, please, please get some confidence. When you do, you'll be so proud to say, you see that woman over there? Like my husband always says. He always says, in the history of the Republic of Ireland, you can't change history. It's only once it's written, right? He always says, when you look at the political history of the Republic of Ireland, which is already written in history, the first Black woman to become a councillor was his wife. Now, if that's not a thing for a man to be happy about, I don't know what is. How can he confidently say that? Because he worked with me to achieve that goal. Do you know what I call him? I call him the councillor maker. I always say that in the history of canvassing and campaigning in this country, in local elections, that my husband was one man that campaigned better than any other man. Why? Because he got out there at the canvassing, he knocked every door, he spoke to every person, convincing them every way he knew how to vote for his wife, not for himself, for his wife. So that's the point I'm making, right? That, yes, culture has stopped us in so many ways, but who makes culture? We do. Who forms culture? We did. Who dictates culture? We do. And so who can make culture more advantageous for us as human beings? We can. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Thank you so much. My next question is for Chief Mamadou. As an ambassador for Shiro's Boys to Men project, how can we alleviate the challenges that women face in the quest to achieve generation equality?
Well, it's still the same old story. We just must make that deliberate effort to make sure that we don't put our women down in every way we relate to them. I'm very happy, and a lot of people were listening to my sister, Councillor Yemi Adenuga. She has put it so eloquently that, you see, when a woman makes it to the top, the man, of course, is also affected. It's your pride to see your wife make it. But if you want your wife to be, down the ladder all the time so that you can feel important and more superior to her, then it shows that you really don't understand life as it should be. As an ambassador, I can tell you that I've done everything to encourage women, whether in Nigeria or beyond. And I'd like to share the story of Senator Joel Awal Taylor. While her husband was in prison, was in power, a lot of people said he was dictatorial. But you will not believe it. In the same home, a lot of Liberians loved the wife because she was the one reaching out to the grassroots, carrying them along, catering to the needs, of many of them. After the husband got out of power and fell out of grace, and of course was sentenced to life imprisonment, you will not believe that the former First Lady of Liberia was able to contest the election in Liberia and became a senator. A two-term senator. Today, she is the vice president of Liberia. Why? Because she did not partake in
The network is frozen.
Men of power, of touching all that. Sorry, okay. But the wife was always very level-headed. So, and I tell a lot of people that if you see a useless leader anywhere in the world, go and check the family, go and check the wife in particular. a mother, a play husband. Because at the end of the day, you are going to quit power one day, and then it is the whole family who will suffer in the process. So I've always been conscious of this. A lot of times my wife will advise me, I would disagree vehemently, but later when I go inside my room, I'm thinking, hey, I think she was right. And then later when my ego comes down, then I will have to say, you were right, I was wrong. And that's one of the things we must be able to do. Men should not think women cannot advise them. Men should not think their wives don't matter. Their female, child does not matter. And that is what we see in a lot of societies, where you cannot even voice out an opinion as a woman and they will just shout you down.
Thank you so much, Chief Mamadou. I will just read some of the comments from the participants. Brenda Ramokopewa actually says, thank you for this great session. And Tandin Tetwa says, male feminists, this is what we need in Africa. And Nonkululeko Masuk says, I completely agree with the notion of creating platforms for women to mold other women. We have to cultivate a culture of investing in the next generation of young women. We should always remember to differentiate the map from the actual territory, to be proactive about the futures we create. Georgina Dapopo says, I wish we could get this to the traditional media and to get to have more of our male folk hear this. Well done, Councillor Yemi, keep the flag flying. Well done. And she also says, well done, Chief Mamadou, keep the flag flying. And then JD says, so true. In the US, we say Obama is the husband of Michelle. Mm-hmm. We do not say that Michelle is the wife of Obama. And and this resonates with the fact of how, we all know that Michelle Obama is such a powerful woman. And I'm so happy again that she's Black and she is female. And it really is a lot of us on the continent in Africa that we can do it if she can do it. And it takes me actually to our next question, which is the Shiro's Boys to Men project. Please share more light on that project and how it can actually help in achieving the Generation Equality campaign.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I think back to my background, how I grew up, and how the men who were supposed to have been the champions and the heroes in my life, my uncles, and who were the ones I expected to have encouraged me to become, were the ones telling me I was going to be nobody. And they were telling me I was going to be somebody who would sell myself on the streets, myself and my sisters. And I always wondered, who died and made them king? Who gave them that power to speak such nonsense into our lives? They always say in Yoruba land, right? See, I'm a proper Yoruba girl, right? So I always remember Yoruba sayings that words are like eggs. When they drop and they break, you can't scoop them back up, can you? No, it's said. I remember those words when they were said. And the fact of the matter is that these men did not have the right to speak into their brothers' children's lives like that. They had children of their own. Why would they wish ill for somebody else's child? And so for me, that was one of the reasons why I started the Shiro's Boys to Men project. We need to teach our boys to do better. Our men are all grown and formed. I see men as, the dry fish, right? When the fish is already dry, if you try to bend it, you break it, right? Yeah. But when it's fresh, directly from the sea or from whatever water it was fished out of, you can fold it any way you like and even stick one of them screws through it, right? And dry it up, and then it becomes the shape you want it to be. But you do that when it's fresh. And so we decided that while there are organizations that are dealing with issues of sexual-based violence, dealing with the issues of unequal pay and all of that bit that caused by men, we will go to the very root of the matter and start to groom our boys to become good men. That's why I started the Shiro's Boys to Men project. And the goal of the project is to raise our boys to be good men. It's as simple as that. A good boy will grow up to be a good man. A good man will be a good husband. A good man will be a good father. He will play his role in the life of a child, even if he's not married to the mother of that child. He will still be a role model for that child, especially a boy child who needs a male figure to look up to. He will respect a woman. A good man will respect a woman who is executive at work and will not go around saying she slept her way through to the top. He will respect what value she brings to the table. And how do we run the Boys to Men project? Previously, what we used to do was go into communities and ask people, men in those communities, if they wanted to set up a Shiro's Boys to Men club. And men who said yes, will set up a club. I would take one day to work with them and train them, and they will start the club. But after about 2 years, experience showed us that some of these men were already set in their ways. They grew up a certain way. Their backgrounds had a huge impact on how they delivered our curriculum. So while we had a fantastic curriculum, the people who were delivering the curriculum mattered. We had a situation where people, I remember one particular occasion where a parent had complained that a Boys to Men mentor had shouted at her son. And we had to try and address that. And even at that, this man, in his response, while he was trying to say he wasn't shouting, he said, I was not shouting. He was still shouting when he was saying he wasn't shouting. So we decided to redesign our training program. And what we've done now, what we have now, is a training program that first trains the mentors. Anyone who is going to be a mentor for the Shiro's Boys to Men project must first be ready to be reorientated, to unlearn and relearn. So our men become better men when they go through our training. Our mentors now go through a 3 months, 12 weeks rigorous reorientation training where we transform their thinking and help them see how to be more empathetic, how to be more open, how to be more human. By the time you finish this training in 12 weeks, they are better husbands, they are better brothers, they are better fathers, they are better members of their society. And so they take this new transformed person, they bring it to now run a Shiro's Boys to Men club, and then they can confidently say that I can mentor a boy within my community. So we don't just walk into a community and ask people now to become mentors. If you want to be a mentor, you have to be affiliated with an organization in your community. For example, it could be a school, and every mentor has to come sponsored. So you could be sponsored by a corporate organization. For example, if peradventure we do get funding, we could open it up and say, okay, we have 12 places for mentors in different areas and they can apply. But you have to be affiliated to an organization because our business model is hinged on collaboration. We work with existing organizations on ground in different communities. And so if you're in a school, perhaps you can ask your school to put you forward to become a mentor for that school, and you go through the 12 weeks training. So even the training, it's a double-edged sword. You become a better person. There is no way you go through that training and you don't come out becoming better. And every person every mentor gets sponsored. And when a mentor finishes his training, through that 12 weeks training, there are stages and processes that they have to go through. They have to go through 3 vetting stages. Many people have asked questions, how do you know if the mentor is a pedophile? There's no way you will know if a mentor is a pedophile. There's no way you will know if he's a child molester or a rapist. And so we had to set stringent measures to vet and to certify our mentors. The first stage is they have to get a reference. So when you apply, you have to be referenced. It's like looking for a job. You have somebody in your community has to reference you, and we will call and check your reference. The second phase is what we call the notary public vetting. This is where a person of uniform in your community vouches for you. And the reason we say it has to be a person of uniform is because we found that in some communities, people fear the priest more than they fear the police. So a priest is a person of uniform. So anyone of uniform, it could be a priest, it could be a lawyer or a doctor, anyone who is a person of uniform and is highly respected within that community, that person also vouches for you. And then the third stage of vetting is the community vetting. This is where at the phase of the training where the mentor has to bring member stakeholders within his community together. They become aware of the training he's been going through and what role he's playing. And that community then has to say, we know this man, we trust this man, we can vouch for him, we certify him to be a Boys to Men mentor in our community. So then we are not solely responsible if that man does anything wrong. It then becomes a community responsibility, you know. Right now, our phase of training, our next training will be opened in October. People can apply. If you're a man, if you're here, you can apply. If you want to be a mentor, your community can send you forward. You get sponsored. It could be your school, your church, or a school or a church or a group that you're affiliated with within your community. They can put you forward and they can sponsor you. And then when you go through the training, then you set up a Boys to Men club and then you become a mentor. Every mentor works with 10 boys because the idea is to focus and to groom the boys, to raise the boys, not just to have a club. No, you have to be able to spend time understanding and raising them. And everybody in that community has a role. The parents or the guardians of the children have a role. It's not just us who are going to raise these kids. Parents have to play their role, or otherwise the kids lose their place. So there's a communal responsibility within the Boys to Men project.
Thank you so much, Councillor Adenuga. It takes me to our next question for Chief Momodu. The media, including social media, plays a significant role in perpetuating and challenging social norms that condone discrimination or violence against women. We all know that you are a media tycoon. How can the media serve as an ally in advancing women's rights and the Generation Equality campaign?
Well, the media is very vital, not just as a campaigner for women issues, also for mankind in general. But I've always watched out in particular for the way women are treated by the media, especially these days that we're all journalists, put in quote. Social media has made every human being a journalist. So once you have your handset or your laptop or your iPad, you're a journalist. Doesn't matter what other profession you practice. And a very good example, I'll tell you, I am watching my people on social media as we speak, and it's the case of Erica in the Big Brother Niger, who was disqualified a few days ago. And you will see there were people who say, oh, she's a bitch, she's a this, and people hardly find the time to look at the psychological effect of being locked up in a house for so long. Fortunately for me, okay, I have been held in detention for political reasons in the past. And I know that by the time you spend 2-3 days inside detention, everything around you begin to move you towards a kind of madness, you know, and women are very prone to these things. So with the knowledge that you acquire as a journalist, a journalist is expected to know a bit of everything, okay? And it's so easy these days. You can go on Google, you can go, you know, and read, you know, materials about women issues. You will understand that women are grappling with so much. And more often than not, they cannot voice it out. You know, men, we are more boisterous. We can come out, we can talk freely, but women are not, they are deeper. That's why they say women are deeper. So what we then need to do is to reach out as journalists more to women to hear their sides of the stories. Instead of people just judging them, you see labels like women are prostitutes, women love money, all this generalization. are not based on any empirical research. People just come up with them because those are the stereotypes they've been used to. So our media ought to be ready to help to focus and beam attention on women issues, get to understand them well. I've mentioned the issue of barrenness earlier on. People believe that a woman is the one who is barren. They never say it's the man who is not fertile, so everything is always about the women is bad, the women is this, and I believe things are changing, and the women themselves must also begin to come together so that you don't allow the men to emasculate you in such a way that you suffer perpetually from inferiority complex. A woman, once they say a woman wants to be, Councillor Adenuga would have been home just doing nothing if she didn't venture out. But because one, she had a supportive husband who understands the issues, today she's a powerful voice for African women, wherever they are, that yes, it can be done, it may be tough, but it can be done. And so we will continue to promote them, to promote more of them, and make sure in Ghana now we have in opposition a woman, a professor as a vice presidential candidate. So it means that the women are coming up. And then we must encourage the men. I was one of those who thought, hey, I'm praying that in Africa we're going to have more women come out. But if the journalists don't beam that light on them, it will be more difficult. In Nigeria right now, 2023 is still 3 years away. You will not believe it. People are talking about presidential candidates. Nobody has ever mentioned a woman. Even as running mates, nobody has ever mentioned a woman. So, but until we expose our women and encourage them. I remember interviewing Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala the other day, and I said, will you run to the president? No. Is it because the thing is that they are so bullied and intimidated by the men that they just, hey, please leave me out of trouble. I don't want anybody to come after me. And that's what happens. There are blistering attacks against our women. Once they express interest in anything that is so good for the society, they shut them down. And journalists can help in this regard. Thank you.
So much, Chief Dele Momodu. My final question, I'm going to merge both of them together. So it's a two-in-one package for you, Councillor Adenuga.
Okay.
It's a question by it's a question on marital rape, and it is by Amanda Alopa. And she says she would like to know, she would like to get your view on marital rape with the victims being women. That's the section A of the question. And then the part B is, how do we engage boys and men to view women as their equal? What do you recommend?
Okay. So the first part, marital rape. My question, I've heard this question before, and I always ask, why would a man want to rape his wife if he's playing his role well? Why would a man want to rape his wife if he's done his responsibility? Here is the thing. I'm going to share something today that I think men, once you get that, it makes life a lot easier for you. A woman is not looking for much. A woman in a relationship, in a marriage, wants to be able to put a hand on her heart, on her chest, or wherever, and say, you see that man over there? He is mine. He's got my back 24/7, and I don't have to worry. That's what a woman wants. When she has that assurance of you being solidly behind her. Hear me?
Okay, yes, now we can hear you.
Something interesting happened there.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're back.
Yes. When a woman has the solid assurance of her husband's ultimate support, that woman will give anything for her man. Anything. It just needs to be asked. But men need to understand that. And so when a man feels the need to rape his wife, it means that there is no consent. It means he wants it, but she doesn't want it. And we forget that we're both human. So there's always there's that thing of communication and mutual understanding. There are times when both parties might feel, oh, I'm a little tired, or I'm not sure this is the right time. It's all about communication. Anybody here today who is a man, you do not need, when you're married to your woman, you do not need to force it. If you're nice enough, you will get it every night if you want. I can tell you that for nothing. You just have to be kind enough to her. Be kind to your woman. Value your woman. Appreciate your woman. Make her feel like the queen of the world. She will make you the king. She will make you the king. She will turn heaven and earth upside down for you as her man. But you need to get that first. And when you get that, you don't need to rape her. You don't need to force her. You can get some every night. Even when she has a headache, she will make room for you. I'm hoping that this sinks in for a number of people who are men who are listening here today. Because this has become a major issue in relationships, in marriages even. And our culture, our tradition teaches us, especially in Africa, that once you marry a woman, she becomes your property. You can take her whenever you want. But remember that she's human. As human as you are. And this is what we're talking about, equality. She's as human as you are. You have the choice because you were told by culture and tradition that if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Culture has told us that when a woman is asking for sex in her relationship or wants to make love, we're all adults here, wants to make love to her husband, suddenly the man says, who has been teaching you? She suddenly becomes a prostitute because she's not allowed to ask for it. She just has to be available for it. Now we need to wake up from that and recognize that women also have feelings and that they can express it to their husbands, who are supposed to be the people who hold their hearts dearly. So marital rape is a no-no. Whether you're married or not, consent is very, very important in any give and take, whether for a man or for a woman. You don't need to force yourself. Play your role, you will get it every single time. And now to the second question. Can you please repeat it again? I want to be sure that I'm answering it appropriately.
Okay. How do we engage boys and men to view women as their equal? Because I mean, you already mentioned some of the problem where men do not see women as their equal. Even a boy doesn't even see the girl. He's like, oh, you're just a girl, or you're behaving like a CC, or why are you such a girl? Or why are you so emotional? Or why are you so empathetic? Or why are you so kind? Or why are you so many, many souls? So how do we engage our men and boys to actually view women as their equal?
Okay, so I'll share a little theory with you. It came out of a conversation that I had with a group of women. I was in a conference, a summit actually, last year. I think it was late last year. It's a summit that's run here in Ireland, and I was a speaker at that summit. It's called the Women's Empowerment Summit, right? And it's a big gathering of Irish women. And we were having a conversation, and it came round to the issue of this very question you're asking: can women ever be equal with men? And one of the things that I said was, well, perhaps the reason why men so desperately want to keep women down here is because they're afraid of the power that women hold.
That's right.
Women hold so much power that men recognize the power that women carry. And in order to curtail that power, they keep the women there. Your place is in the kitchen, you stay there. Mm-hmm. Now, think about it. Look at women across the globe who have become superpowers. Not even necessarily in politics, but who have a voice. They do things differently. They open doors. When they have a passion for something, they don't bulldoze their way in, you know. They open the doors through their passion for it. You know, they're very strategic and they get results. And so men recognize this. So the issue of equality, trying to get the men to see women as their equal, that's not, for me, that wouldn't be the question. It would be an issue of getting the women to raise more women, to be up there, so much so that the men will have no choice but to see women as their equal. That's the issue. When the more women we have up there, sitting up there at the decision-making table, the better the chances of women feeling that they own a position at those tables and that they rightly own it. So I'm encouraging every woman here. Whatever you've achieved in life, you know how hard you've worked for it. You know how challenging it's been getting there. I'm working with a group of young girls here in Ireland who I'm already preparing to go into politics. Are you interested in politics? Yes. As I learn, then learn. I'm grooming them and getting them ready to be politicians. Not to play politics, but to deliver for the people. I always tell people, I'm not a politician. Yes, I'm in politics, but I am not a politician because there's an expectation of how politicians should deliver work. I'm here to do the work. And that's how I'm mentoring the girls who are coming in and who want to step into politics. So, and that's the point I'm making, that the more women we have, raised by women, held up by women who are sitting at decision-making table, the men will have no choice. You go into a boardroom, you have 12 men, you have 11 men and 1 woman. That woman is already overpowered. There are many strikes against her. When I came to Ireland and I stepped into politics, there were 4 strikes against me. Here I was a woman. Yes, that was a big part of it. I wasn't just a woman. I was an African woman. So here I am, a migrant, saying that I want to step into politics in Ireland. And then I had an accent. I wasn't your typical Irish accent kind of woman, you know? So these were strikes. Yet, they were people who believed in me. Some of them women as well. And that's the point, that women need to begin to find their way up, bring others along with them up, so that the men will recognize that women also can play equally. But here is the thing though. If we recognize each other's strengths, there will be no need to be fighting for a place or fighting for equality. Just have respect for what everybody brings to the table. And so for every man who is here, I will come back to the men and finish up on that. For every man who is here, you want to play a role, start from your environment. Don't try to conquer the world. Conquer your environment first. Start from your wife. Show her more respect and more love. Help her see that you value what she brings to the table at home. Respect her opinion. If she speaks something that you think is not so accurate or doesn't make sense, empower her, encourage her, help her feel like she's got somebody who she can come to if she makes a mistake. You be that go-to person. Empower your daughters at home. Teach them to respect themselves. Teach them to have self-respect and self-worth, to see the value in themselves. This is how you become allies on the table of equality. We're looking for allies in our men. This is how you become an ally. So step up in your community. Everybody around you, every woman that you encounter from today, begin to show how much you value them. Don't see the woman, see what they deliver, see what they bring to the table. And ask yourself, if she wasn't a woman, would I respect that thing, that achievement? Would I respect what she's done? And you'll find that your answer will be super yes. And that's how you engage and you become an ally and you help to empower women. And you teach your boys to respect women, like we're doing on the Shiro's Boys to Men project. Teach boys to have self-respect and respect for others and respect for women around them. And you can do that as a man and as a father and as a man in your own community.
Thank you so much, Councillor Denuga. The last question also goes to Chief Momadou. How do we engage boys and men from your perspective as a man and as a father in achieving the Generation Equality campaign?
Well, I have written down a few points as to what we need to do, boys to men. One, Councillor Adenuga has just mentioned, respect is very key. You must respect women. Because without that respect, you will continue to misbehave and put them down. And ultimately, there will be a breakdown in communication between men and women. The other is to trust. I said it earlier that I trust my wife absolutely. If she says she wants to go anywhere in the world, I don't have to go with her. If on the weekend she says she and her friends are going to a nightclub, if I can go to a club with my friends So what stops her from also going out with her friends? So you must trust your woman, and then you will have peace. Then you must learn to forgive each other. It's very important for men, because every day, because of the nature of human beings, you must quarrel, you must have disagreements. But if you learn to forgive, you will see that ultimately, I mean, there are times I will say, I'm tired, I'm not no longer interested. But then I will realize that forgiveness is everything, because even if I decide to take another wife tomorrow, we are still going to quarrel. So am I going to marry another one after that? So why don't you manage the one you have right now and you both live in peace? The other is to empower. Empower women. When you empower women, you empower yourself. You see, because as I said, men were too impulsive, were too spontaneous, and were a bit extravagant. You know, if you look at my wife, you will never know how much she's worth until the days of tribulations, when the family is down. Then you say, oh, okay, is there any way I can, let me see what I can get, and then you'll be shocked. So you had this all along, and you didn't tell me. But if she had told you, you would have probably blown it, you know, again. Then the other is, you must continue to encourage a woman to do well. As I said, women are better managers. They are better managers. I've studied it. I've seen it. They are more disciplined because they don't have the kind of distractions that we have. Like I said, a man can have 4 wives. It is impossible for a woman to have 4 husbands at the same time. So try to encourage your woman and everybody. The ultimate that we need to teach is the art and science of pampering. You must pamper the woman. In fact, the road to a woman's heart is in pampering. I realize that every now and then, if I make some money, sorry, we say NEPA here, my light just went off, so I'm sure they'll bring it in a second, is that when you pamper a woman and you try to understand her, is it because women go through so much in life? And I think a life-changing experience for me was the fact that I was present during the birth of 3 out of my 4 boys. It was such an experience that would never leave me forever, especially the last one. You can imagine we're sitting in the hospital there for 24 hours in labor. And the doctor walks in and tells you that, look, I need to wheel your wife straight into the theater now, or she might lose the baby and also lose her life. And at that moment, I had to go downstairs. I went to a private, I started praying. I said, no, me, I'm a sinner. Maybe God will not even answer my prayers. And I called my kids, the rest of the kids at home. I said, look, me, I'm a sinner. Can you start praying for your mom? Because right now, she's in danger. And by the time I got back into the labor room, I met a woman, a Ghanaian woman, in front of, she was speaking in tongues, and she delivered the baby without going to the theater. So that for me was a life-changing experience. That sometimes when we say women are too difficult, we don't look at the difficulties that they have had to face all their lives. So I say, okay, I don't expect a woman to be normal. So they will always, because they go through so much. So by the time we encapsulate all this, you will see that life will begin to have more meaning. We should not give up. People give up easily on themselves. Either the woman says, I'm tired of the man, or the man says, I'm tired of the woman. By the time you get to that stage, let me tell you what Chief MKO Abiola told me, you know, the night we got married. The way you get to that stage where you both want to quit, please remember the innocent people you told that you have found love and you invited to your wedding, and they invested emotionally, financially, and otherwise into your wedding. Remember us and don't quit. And that will be my final words. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Chief Momodu. I would like to read some of the comments for both of you. Someone said, this is a very important topic that all men, especially African men, should all attend. Education is the key to cultural change. Someone else also says that we need male feminists to support us women in our quest for equality. We need more women as leaders in order to represent women and girls in all walks of life. Generation equality is a pertinent issue. I learned a lot today. Someone also said, okay, and then another person, Tandy Ntetwa, said, women have been challenging domineering power structures. Wow. And then Adetunji Omotola says, power to the panelists. Chief Mamadou, I salute you, and above all, your mom, who shined the torch on you. I also love the fact that you studied Yoruba and literature. Well done, sir. Then he also says to Councillor Yemi Adenuga, you made me get goosebumps when you spoke about your uncle and your promise to your mother. You are a natural leader and a visionary. And on that note, I would want both of you, but first I will start with Councillor Yemi Adenuga to say the parting words to the participants before we end the webinar.
Thank you so much, Mary. Once again, I just want to say a massive thank you for putting this together. It's an amazing work you're doing. You're making us very proud. You are an African leader yourself, and you must recognize that. You know, we must begin to celebrate, continue to celebrate ourselves, and recognize that there is power in everyone. It's important how we use that power and how we make that power work for us. Well done for putting this together. And I want to thank everybody who's been part of this today. I want to encourage everybody. I always say that any meeting for me is not just a meeting, it's an encounter. I tell people that I don't go to meetings. I am an encounter. People who allow themselves to get to know me will not leave me the same than compared to when they met me. They will leave me feeling absolutely different, absolutely better. And that's what we must all do. Wherever we go, we bring the power, we bring the influence, we all carry it. And so today for me has been another encounter. Every single person, you're here for a purpose. You didn't just come here to listen to Chief Momodu and myself speak and answer questions. You didn't just come to see this great event that Mary has put together. You have come here as well to take something that will enable you make a difference in your community and ensure gender equality and equity. So the question you must ask yourself and answer it honestly, why did I come here today? If you weren't sure at the beginning, you should be sure now. And I can add to your answer that part of why you're here today is because you are part of the solution. You must take what you've heard today. Don't just say, oh yes, oh my goodness, Councillor Yemi Adenuga was a great speaker, you know, she said so much. And sometimes people ask you, what exactly did she say? It's like people who go to church and you ask them, what did the preacher say? Oh, that preacher, the pastor was so powerful. What did he say? He said so much. Give me one point, you should have been there. They don't hit the nail on the head. Don't be one of those. You are here today for a purpose. That purpose is that you are part of the solution. Go home, go back wherever it is that you are today, go back and think about how you can begin to bring about a change in your community. Everything you've heard today that you think it's powerful, how can you use that and make a difference? Because I will say it again, you're part of the solution. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I'm sure nobody here is the problem, but you are the solution. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your kind words, for your great comments. But what I would love to see is perhaps when I meet somewhere or meet any one of you again, you'll be able to say, yes, I heard you and Chief Momodu speaking one time as a webinar that Mary put together, and I took your words and I did this. That's what I want to hear. I want to see you at the top making a difference. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Chief Momodu, for sharing of your wealth as well. Thank you for being a great African leader and for always making a difference. And we're honored to have you as an ambassador for the Shiro's Boys to Men project. Thank you very much.
And
yes,
Chief, please, your time to say your final words to all
going to be a brief one. I want to thank you, Mary, for your time this evening. And I must salute your tenacity because it was actually very tight for me to come on the program this week due to all kinds of engagements, but you never gave up. You kept adjusting because of me. You said, we will work with your time. And I want to congratulate my sister, my friend of so many years, Councillor Yemi Adenuga. I don't know what I have done to this lady, but the respect she continues to shower on me is very uncommon. And I'm like a member of her family. She told me, no, we're going to do this together. And I must tell you, Mary, that she commanded me, or as we say in Nigeria, commandeered me to be on the program. And I must say, I have no regrets whatsoever coming on your show. And I'm looking forward to other conversations in the future. And then to those who are watching us, our audience, I've read some of their comments and they are very, very encouraging. And I'm hoping that tonight we've been able to inspire a few souls, especially our men who feel that women matter not. We can treat them as we like, but trust me, if you want to have peace in life as a man, you must respect and honor women. Thank you so much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chief Momodu and Councillor Adenuga, for joining us today and having spoken, and we've actually learned a lot. And I know both of you have such Herculean schedules, but in spite of it, you're able to join us today. So specifically for you, Chief Momodu, thank you for being a champion in the quest for gender and generation equality. Thank you for being a he for she. Again, I had researched a lot about you, and I realized that even growing up, how you have done a lot, especially when it comes to women and putting even your wife at the forefront. All of this we've seen. So you've actually been an exemplary leader for gender and generation equality. And for you, Councillor Adenuga, thank you so much for being an Amazon in the quest for the pursuit of gender and generation equality. Reading your story has actually encouraged me, and I'm sure so many other women out there, to say that if you can do it, I mean, you have broken so much records for being the first Black woman to be elected to a provincial council, to be not just a Black woman, but a migrant in another, not even the same continent where, okay, I migrated from Nigeria to Senegal, but from one continent to another. That must have taken a feat. And so I just want to thank you so much to both of you for your great work, and we would thank you for keep blazing the trail while we trail behind you, cheering you both on. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Mrs. Adenuga, good to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, take care. Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Thank you. And to the participants, to everyone who's joined us today, just to reiterate a bit of what was spoken by the speakers. It takes one person. You are that one person who will change the world. We need more godmothers, and not just godmothers, in quotes, air quotes, godfathers. The views of the panelists, a person who is more powerful, this also resonated with me a lot, hands over powers to others. And so men, I would enjoy, the good thing here is I'm surprised because a lot of men actually joined today. And so in my heart, I'm like, thank you. At least we're not preaching to the saints. We're actually preaching, well, to a different breed today, which are men. And I would say, men, please start from your environment. Help your wife and daughter. Be the safe haven. This is how you become an ally on the table of equality. Men must respect women. Men must give women the liberty and trust them. Men must empower and encourage women. And I would like to end with the quote of former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who highlights the importance of the inclusion of men and women to achieve gender parity when he stated that, open quote, achieving gender equality requires the engagement of women and men, girls and boys. It is everyone's responsibility. Keeping this in mind, a word to everyone listening. Let us create a world where women and girls are no longer scared of the night, where they no longer have to fight for what they deserve, and allow them and the future generations of women and girls the opportunity to lead life on their terms as equals. Small actions can have big impacts in making generation equality a reality. And so I enjoin everyone today to let their voices be heard in the quest for gender and generation equality. Thank you so much for joining tonight, and have a good evening. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. And I would say goodbye to Chief Adenuga. I think I saw him online just now. Yes, that's my brother. And thank you for supporting your wonderful wife. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Mary. God bless you. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. God bless you. Thank you.